And Ayhan, Darkening Skies sounds like a very ominous title. Talk to us about why you chose that.
Thank you, Sarah. When you look around the world, you see a clear slowdown underway. You just mentioned we actually downgraded our global growth forecast. We expect growth to be around 2.9% this year. Especially in advanced economies, we are expecting a slowdown. Emerging market and developing economies, growth is going to simply stall. And we downgraded our growth forecast for these economies quite significantly relative to what we had in June.
So what's the downgrade for developed economies and the US specifically?
For US, growth is still strong, and we are expecting, to be around 2.5% this year, coming, last year close to 3%. When you look at euro area, growth is going to slow again from 1.9% to 1.6%. Big downgrades are in emerging market and developing economies. There, relative to what we were thinking in June, downgrade is around 0.5 percentage points. When we think about the global economy, there are three main engines: US, euro area, and China. Three of them together accounted for 50% of global GDP and 60% of global growth last year. This year, all these three economies are going to register slower growth.
So two big factors, it seems like, weighing on global growth, sort of converging right now. There's the trade war, more barriers, more tariffs, and then there's tightening of financial conditions, tighter policy from the Fed and other central banks. Which one do you think is weighing more on the global economy?
We think that especially last year, tightening financial conditions played a big role. But what we have seen over the past 2 weeks, central banks, especially the US Fed, sending a message that it's going to be quite flexible going forward. It's going to look at the data carefully. Chinese central bank basically reducing reserve requirements. These are all, good news. In the context of trade tensions, there are, negotiations underway. This is good news, and we are hoping that these negotiations will ultimately lead to a resolution. Stakes are high when you think about trade. US and China, of course, they account for 1/3 of global economy. And if these trade tensions escalate and these two economies slow down further than what we are expecting, the global implications could be, quite significant.
So, Ayhan, we know we're going to see growth at a lower level in the year ahead. But what about 2020 and 2021? The market seems to be reacting, or certainly last quarter seemed to be reacting, to a fear of recession at some point in the next couple of years. Is that possible in your eyes? In our baseline scenario, we do not see a recession. Especially when you look at advanced economies, yes, growth is slowing down, but it is still quite at healthy levels. And when you look at basically typical likelihoods of recession, for example, in the context of United States, those numbers are still quite low relative to the numbers we saw, in previous recessions, prior to previous recessions. So we do not expect a recession, but unfortunately, we do expect a persistent slowdown even in 2020 and 2021. So the big message is that this is high time for policymakers to do everything possible to reduce uncertainty and implement constructive, forward-looking policies.
How much is China slowing, really?
So China last year, we think that registered 6.5% growth, a very healthy number. This year, we are expecting 6.2%, and we marginally reduced our growth forecast relative to June in the case of China. Now, these headline numbers could be misleading in the following sense. They are still, quite high. But when you look at the high-frequency data at the global level, numbers are suggesting a sharp slowdown. You look at PMI numbers, you look at manufacturing orders, you look at new export orders. They all point to a slowdown. That's why we are saying that the skies are darkening over the global economy. Policymakers need to react.
Finally, Ayhan, were you surprised to get the resignation letter from your boss? President Kim 3 years before his term is up?
Yes, you know, we have a press release on this, and that explains everything. We have our members, 189 of them, and they are going to pick the next president.